Good morning, everyone. Thank you for jumping on board today for the IASFAA Community Outreach Series, Financial Aid Packages. This is our third webinar that we're offering from the IASFAA Community Outreach Committee. My name is Eric Danielson. I'm the Community Outreach Chair this year, and we really appreciate all of you taking the time to join us today for this financial aid package session. Before we get started here and I introduce you to the presenter, Kylie, and she takes over, just a few housekeeping things. Because of the large number that have signed up, we've had 75 that have signed up for this webinar. I do have you all on mute, but if you have a question as we're going along through this presentation, please use the question pane that is located, should be on the right side of your view of the webinar. You can put in a question there, and I'm going to monitor them as Kylie is presenting, and then either interject then. At the end, we'll also leave time for you to ask questions as well and answer those at this time. The other thing that we've also provided, there is a handout section that you should see in your webinar pane, and that handout is a PDF copy of this PowerPoint that you can download and save and have for yourself too, and any other colleagues that are not able to attend today that you can share with. We are recording this webinar, and it will be available within a few days to be able to view. So anyone that could not attend, if they did not sign up, I am going to send them out on the admissions and financial aid and school counselor listservs for them to be able to see on YouTube, a link to YouTube to be able to look at the webinar. So it will be available later for those that could not end up attending today. So those were just a few of the housekeeping things. Without further ado, I would like to introduce our presenter today, Kylie Klomhouse. She is the Financial Aid Director at Southwestern Community College and part of our Community Outreach Committee, and really appreciate that Kylie has taken the time and said, when we asked her if she would present on this topic, she said yes, without strong-arming her too much. So thank you, Kylie, for being willing to present on this today, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right. Thanks, Eric. So let's get started. So as Eric said, we're going to talk about financial aid packages. So what is a financial aid package? The financial aid package is what schools use to let their students know what they're eligible for for financial aid. This can be presented in grant forms, scholarships, loans. Basically, it just lists everything, and I'll kind of get to the whole process on how we get to packaging throughout the presentation. One thing that we do anyway, I would assume that a lot of schools have different routines with it, but along with the financial aid package, we have terms and conditions, and basically the terms and conditions are terms and conditions of their financial aid, the student's financial aid. So we include ours before the student can see their package. They have to agree, read and agree to our terms and conditions. Some things that are on the financial aid package are the estimated cost of attendance based on the number of courses that the student is attending in. It can be in a paper or email format. We use email currently. We can always print it off for students. When I first started here a few years ago, we had students sign the paper and then turn it into us. We've since been kind of upgraded. We're a PowerPaid Net Partner school, so we use, the students use their Net Partner to log in and see their financial aid packages online. Some optional things that you can place on your financial aid package are annual loan limits and loan change request forms. Basically, it's just it's just something you need to make yours. So I'm going to kind of show you an example here. So this is one that has a lot of information. We try to keep ours to one page just because students sometimes it's just easier to get their attention for just a one page. But so the left-hand side of the screen is pretty close to what ours looks like. We show the estimated cost of attendance based on their courses. Ours, in our letter, we actually put their major as well, just so that if it's not correct, then they need to get it updated with registration. And then we also, so this letter on here on the left-hand side of your screen has just some things that about declining and canceling and kind of the process. We put some of our just tips and kind of more conditions about state and grant aid, things like that. So basically just make it yours and make it to where it's easy to understand to the best of your ability. And then the right-hand side is kind of shows the extra stuff that could be optional. This one has the annual loan limits and then the loan change request form. Another
Kylie,
part of, oh, yep.
Kylie, there was a
Yep.
question from someone. They wanted to know, how do you get around FERPA with email? We don't email because of personal information, was the question.
Yep, so good point. We actually only send their award, their actual financial aid package, like it actually looks like the letter here, kind of. We only send that to their SWIC email, and then we send a email to their SWIC email, or up to their personal, I'm sorry, that says you need to check your net partner or check your SWIC email. So that's how we do that.
Thank you.
Yes. Another part of the financial aid package is the financial aid shopping sheet. It offers a lot of the same information that the financial aid package does. Ours is listed in their net partner, in the student's net partner, and then we can also access it through our financial aid system. Most of it is all in an online format. It can be printed out though as well. So again, it just shows the costs for the award year, grants and scholarships, if the student's eligible for work study, and then some other loan options as well. So here is the packaging sequence. When a student is packaged, it starts with grant aid being packaged, and then federal work study, and then loans, and I'll kind of get into the different types of each of those categories here in just a moment. So the different types of aid on the financial aid package starts with gift aid, which is grants and scholarships that don't need to be repaid. So under the grants and scholarships, we've got the federal Pell Grant. The federal Pell Grant is applied for when the student fills out their FAFSA. And then also merit-based and need-based aid, again, those are aid that does not have to be repaid. For self-help aid, there's work study and loans. The work study money is earned. It's not, some of our students get confused when they see it on their financial aid package if they've accepted it and they think they're going to just get that money. And so we just have to stress to students that they have to find a job either on campus, and we've got some off-campus ones as well. So that, and then that money can either be applied to their bill if they choose, or it's just earned money for them. And then loans, we've got the subsidized and the unsubsidized, and I will get into the difference between those in just a second. So the subsidized is need-based. The government pays the interest while the student is in school at least half time. So most half-time enrollment requirements are 6 credits or more. So as long as the student is enrolled in 6 credits, they do not have to pay interest on their subsidized loan. Both interest rates for the 1920 academic year is 4.53. It's kind of went down like a little bit. Like I think the year before it was like 4.55. So, but it does go down a little bit. So hopefully it keeps decreasing. The unsubsidized loan is not need-based, and the big thing about the unsub is the student pays the interest while they're in school. And when I say pays the interest, they can pay that. They're not required to pay the interest. We just like to tell students that that interest is accruing no matter if they're enrolled, as long as they're enrolled in school, they that interest is accruing, whereas the subsidized is not. So that's one of the really big differences between the two loans. The other option for the loans is the Parent Plus program. This loan is in the parent's name, but it's for the student's schooling expenses. The interest rate for this year was 7.08, and then they get a parent credit check for that loan as well. So different sources of financial aid. We've got the federal and state government, and then institutional sources. So for example, we have our education foundation, and then that's where all of our, some of our need and merit-based scholarships come from, and then our athletic scholarships, things like that. Outside sources is really important. So those would be like scholarships that students in like their senior year are applying for, that they receive, at their high school awards days. Those are what we consider, those get placed in an outside sources category within their financial aid. So the first step with to get to the financial aid package is filling out the FAFSA. The FAFSA can be completed at studentaid.gov/FAFSA. They've kind of changed it up a little bit, but it's pretty easy to tackle. It probably could take about 15 to 20 minutes. The really nice part is when the student logs into the FAFSA, they are hopefully able to link their taxes from the IRS, so that makes it a lot smoother. Students can start filling out the FAFSA for the 2020-2021 year. They can start that in October, and they can fill it out until next June. It's a long period of time, but they opened it up early so that people could use the prior year taxes. So for the 2020-2021 FAFSA, students will use their 2018 taxes, and most of the time, like we usually tell students that we process within 3 to 5 days, especially for the current year. We are currently in the process of getting in gear for the 2021 year, but most of the time it's just a few business days. So some things that the FAFSA calculates is the estimated family contribution, which is we call the EFC. The EFC is a measure of the family's financials, and it's calculated by a formula that established by law. The family's taxed and untaxed income, assets, and benefits are all considered in that formula. The other thing is the family size and then the number of family members who will attend college during that specific award year. That actually plays a really big part in that. The information on the FAFSA is what is used to calculate that EFC, and then that's where the schools use that EFC to determine what the financial aid package is going to look like for that student. The EFC is not the amount of money the family will have to pay for college, and it's not the amount of financial aid that the student is eligible for or will receive. It's just the number used by the schools so that we can calculate what the federal eligibility is for that student. So financial need, this is the difference between cost of attendance at any given school and then your EFC. The cost of attendance varies from different schools, but the EFC doesn't matter. That stays the same. Doesn't matter if you're coming to a community college, going to a 4-year, the EFC always stays the same. So I've kind of got an example here of cost of attendance at 3 different schools. As you can see, the EFC stays the same, and then it shows their financial need at the end on what they could possibly owe. So the cost of attendance is based on direct and indirect costs. Direct costs are tuition and fees and room and board, and then our indirect costs are the books and supplies, and then other miscellaneous and personal expenses. Here I've got an example of a couple different colleges and their direct costs, so the tuition and fees, and then what the student was eligible for in grants and scholarships. So then it shows that we take that remaining cost and throw in any personal savings, and so that leaves a couple different amounts that the student would need to borrow from loans, or if the parent would need to do a parent plus loan. So that just gives an example of how that kind of works out.
Kylie, I do have a question from someone.
Sure.
They say, when you say process in 3 to 5 days, how long before a student gets their award letter, financial aid package?
So during the current year, we've kind of got, it's kind of different during a current year versus like the upcoming year. During the current year, if the student fills out their FAFSA, say on a Monday, we usually get it by like Wednesday, Friday at the very latest, depending what would be needed with, like, there's processes that could kind of cause the student to be delayed a little bit, such as verification. But if the student doesn't need verification and has all their transcripts in, has all their documents in, we would package usually within a week or two, or a day or two, sorry. It just kind of depends what time of the year it is as well. Right now we're pretty on top of it. The minute, we get stuff going, within the next couple days, students have their award or their financial aid package in their email and then on their net partner. For next year, for the upcoming year, we haven't started sending those out yet. We'll start doing that late spring, just trying to get, we kind of do a batch of that. And then as it gets closer to the award year, we'll do it more frequently than we'll do that every so often, just as students get their stuff done over the summer.
And I just want to add, I think I know when we're talking with a lot of colleges and universities, and hopefully, and this will kind of answer that question or for others as well, I think a lot of colleges and universities, there were some that were sending them out end of November, even into December, but many of them are just starting right now for the 2021 school year, right, in getting those financial aid packages sent out. And then there will be others, and maybe Kylie, it might be around this time that you may be as well. I'll let you say it, but there are some colleges that it might even be April before we send it, end of March or April before we send them out. So it really depends on the colleges when we're talking about students going on to the next year, correct?
Yes, that's sometimes the hard part when we have students, that are trying to decide, wanting to see their financial aid packages, that it's hard because some schools, we're a smaller school, obviously, we don't have all the resources that, a bigger school may have. But yes, we try to have ours out by end of March, beginning of April for sure. And if a lot of times if they don't have a financial aid package, it's because they have documents to complete. So it just kind of depends on the student situation, but most of the time we try to have ours out by the end of March, beginning of April. Okay, so here I've kind of got a financial aid timeline. This is really helpful. We kind of have something similar to this in our office just to let students know. So basically all year round, students should be searching for and applying for scholarships. The scholarships, I know a lot of students may not want to put in the effort for it, but it really does help pay off to help hopefully decrease your ending loan debt if students have to take out loans during their schooling time. So scholarships are definitely a thing to be looking for all year round. And then a lot of schools actually have their own foundation scholarships. So we actually have that as well. So our our fall deadline for scholarships is actually, I believe, March 15th. So it just kind of depends the school, but and then we also have a spring deadline. So if a student, maybe didn't get the chance to apply for the fall, or they, maybe aren't going to start until the spring, then we also have like a December deadline for spring scholarships from our foundation. So I cannot stress enough to apply for scholarships. From about August to October, students need to be gathering their tax information for that year. So as I said, the 2021 FAFSA uses 2018 taxes, and then it'll go up from there using 2019 and so on. The FAFSA opens October 1st each year, as I mentioned. So from about October to March is when, again, we're kind of sending what we would call like missing document letters or like other forms that may be needed. So if the FAFSA, student's FAFSA is flagged for something about this, like we were just talking about, that would be around the time frame that we would be sending that stuff out. And then some schools send it out like right after the first of the year, their financial aid packages. We just, we don't get to it quite that quickly. But so from about January to anywhere from January to April is when all of those financial aid packages are sent out for reviews by the students. One thing we do stress is that anything that we send out basically up until they start attending classes in the fall is that their financial aid is all estimated. That's just because there's so many things that could change. They could change their credit hours. They could change their major. There's just so many things that could change from, say, April to August. So that's one thing that we do, make sure our students are aware of, that it is an estimated cost of financial aid. Most of the time it doesn't change a ton, but it could depending on credit hours, things like that. And then May through July, throughout the summer months, is when students really want to be finalizing their financial aid. We actually put some verbiage in one of our letters that if your financial aid is not complete, meaning like your verification paperwork, your transcripts, anything like that that may be needed, if that's not done by July, that we let students know there may be a delay in your financial aid for disbursement. We don't want that to be the case, but it's just hard to get students to get their stuff done because then when they come in August, they're panicking because their financial aid's not done. And so definitely during the summer months is when students really want to make sure that all of their financial aid is set and finalized for the fall.
Kylie, I do have well, we're on the question slide right now. I do have a couple of questions here. The first one is, are the amounts of merit and academic aid fluid depending on other aid they may be eligible to receive, or are those fixed amounts?
So I would say more they're fluctuated based on other aid. It just kind of depends. Sometimes, because there's certain like federal aid that if a student's eligible for a federal Pell Grant, we legally cannot adjust to that amount. Whereas like if the student took out loans but then got a scholarship, because there's only so much financial need that or cost of attendance that we can award a student. So it just kind of depends, because we can reduce a loan if the scholarship that a student gets is $500, but they're at cost of attendance, we can reduce the loan. I mean, that's going to be in their best interest, but it just kind of depends, because some of the federal aid we can't adjust, and it also depends on what the outside or what the who the funding is from. We run into a lot of that with our foundation for some of our scholarships, that the student, they have a lot of financial need, but they use it all, and then we have to find room for it somewhere in their budget. So.
And I guess the only thing you might have mentioned, one thing that I would add to that would just be, if a student has no financial need, but they qualify for merit-based awards can be given no matter what your need is, though. I mean, if you have no financial need, but you qualify for an academic, athletic, artistic ability award from a school, that can be given no matter what your financial need is. It is taken into account if you have financial need, but those don't have to be or can be given without any financial need.
Right. Yeah. Sorry, that might be kind of confusing. Thank you for explaining that.
Another question was, let's say freshman year, you take out, this was from another, freshman year I take out a subsidized loan for $25K. Actually, the most you'd be able to take out a subsidized loan as a freshman would be $3,500. So let's use that as easy. Freshman year, I take out a subsidized loan for $3,500 and take 6 credits or more. Government pays the interest. I'm trying to get to that. Sophomore year, I take out $4,500 in a subsidized loan because that's the max amount you could if you have financial need for that, and take 6 or more credits. Government pays the interest. Do I start paying interest my freshman year of the loan then? Or I think the question is, would the freshman year where the government paid the interest start accruing during the sophomore year, or would it still be subsidized all throughout their college career?
It would still be, as long as that also depends on their estimated family contribution. But if the student is eligible for the subsidized loan, the student will, as long as the student is staying enrolled continuously, so like even if they take the summer off and they're planning on going right back in the fall, that typically doesn't count against them. Most loan lenders allow a 6-month grace period. So it would be when the student would, so say they go to, like, so if they come here to Southwestern for 2 years, get their subsidized in their freshman year, and then their sophomore year they have they're subsidized again. If they go on, or if they are done after Southwestern, then they would complete what's called exit counseling, and then that's when it would let their loan lender know that they're not attending anymore, and so then that might start their grace period. The thing that would catch that is if they are going to go somewhere else, so say they're going to go to Iowa or Iowa State or something like that to continue their education, then they would do, if they're going to take out loans there as well, they would complete entrance counseling, which would then notify the loan lenders that, hey, the student's enrolled again, we don't need to start charging them interest. They're still enrolled in that half-time status.
All right. Thank you, Kylie. And yeah, I'm just going to finish going off of that. It's $3,500 for, again, freshman year is the max subsidized amount, $4,500 for sophomore year, and then $5,500 a junior senior year is what the students would be eligible for if they have, like you said, after any other aid given, have financial need up to that amount. If they only have need up to $2,000 remainder after any other aid, then $2,000 is what the subsidized amount would be. If they have no financial aid, or no financial need at all after any other aid given, then all of it would be unsubsidized, where the interest starts accruing right away. But as that will be listed on the award letters, the subsidized and unsubsidized amounts, if there are any. They will break that up depending on what the student's financial need is after any other aid given. Any other questions for Kylie before we end the webinar? Any other questions at all? Okay. Now you've got Kylie's information on here, and again, a lot of these award letters are just starting to go out. Financial aid packages are starting to go out to students and families right now. So I'm sure that it's, especially for some of you that are on the webinar, you'll start to get questions in that. You've got Kylie's information there. She'd be more than happy to answer any questions. Again, feel free to contact us at ICANN as well, I will say, and we can certainly, if any of you, especially high school counselors, if you have any families who are wanting to go over the award letters and they're close to one of our locations, I'll just say that's something that we can do with families in our offices as well, and go through with them and spell it out, what their costs are going to be, and be more than happy to do that. So it does not look like there are any other questions. that are on there. So Kylie, I want to thank you again for sharing the information today that you did. Really appreciate taking the time to do that. So thank you very much.
Yes, thanks for having me.
And we are going to end this webinar now, but the last thing I'll remind is we did record this. So if you know of anybody that wasn't able to attend that would want to see it, it will be available within a couple of days. And I'm going to send that out on the listservs to remind everyone about that later on. So thank you very much, everyone. Have a great rest of the day, and we appreciate you taking the time to jump on board with us today. Thank you.